Greetings, everybody. Hello, wherever you are. Today is New Year's Day 2015. Yay! So, here I am, Simon in your bed. This is the bed I'm currently hanging out on. And if I stand behind it, also looks a little bit like a prison. So here I am. All of 2014, I kept thinking to myself when I was reading a certain book, I'd love to read this live for everybody else to hear. So this is the beginning of me reading one of the books that I think is powerful, important, inspirational, visionary, and really expresses very well, very clearly where we are right now as a human species, or definitely encapsulates a lot of the aspects of what's happening in our humanity. And that book is The More Beautiful World Our Hearts Know Is Possible by Charles Eisenstein. And if you don't know it, then this might be the first time that you even find out about it, hear about it, hear me read. I'm going to read a chapter per video, so it's there for you as a gift to listen to, download, enjoy as you will. And also it's a great thing for me to do because it also makes me read the book where I've read certain chapters a number of different times, but get to read the book again and digest it again and take in, because when you get certain books like this one that Charles has written, or his other one, The Ascent of Humanity, or Sacred Economics, or any book, any powerful books, really beautiful books that are out there in the world now, are messages, maps of our world. And the more that you read them, as you probably notice anyway, if you've read a book a number of times, every time you read it, you get something new from it, something else sinks in. And also with books, you read them and you think you've got the information, and very rarely you have, and then we go off because we're taken off on the other information and other books and so much information out there that we get pulled around and then find out sometimes that, they're all saying the similar thing that was in this book or that book, or, and I read that one 10 years ago and I'm reading it again here. But you register it in a different way depending on your experience. So I hope you enjoy this. And I've just dived out there because it's something I wanted to do. It's going to be live, so you can tune in live when I do these, or you can watch the replay and enjoy in your own time, like a bedtime story or a daytime story, or any time is good time for a story. So I also got this amazing instrument called the hokima. It's going to play a little bit of that before we begin, and then I'll begin with chapter 1. Thank you for being here. I love this instrument because anybody can play it. Okay, so The More Beautiful World Our Hearts Know Is Possible by Charles Eisenstein. In a time, this is just just going to read what's on the back. In a time of social and ecological crises, what can we as individuals do to make the world a better place? This thought-provoking book serves as an empowering antidote to the cynicism, frustration, and paralysis so many of us are feeling, replacing it with a grounding reminder of what's true. We are all connected, and our personal choices bear unsuspected transformational power. By fully embracing and practicing this principle of interconnectedness, we become more effective agents of change and have a stronger, positive influence on the world. Lovely. Some quotes and stuff on the back, or testimonials from different people. Don't need to read those today. When you buy the book, you can read those. If you buy the book. So each chapter takes around approximately 15 minutes or so. Chapter 1, separation. Make sure you're comfortable. Tuck yourself in. Make sure you have your hot tea ready by your side. Sit back, close your eyes, and enjoy a inspirational story. Chapter 1. Sometimes I feel nostalgic for the cultural mythology of my youth, a world in which there was nothing wrong with soda pop, in which the Super Bowl was important, in which America was bringing democracy to the world, in which the doctor could fix you, in which science was going to make life better and better, and they just put a man on the moon. Life made sense. If you worked hard, you could get good grades, get into a good college, go to grad school, or follow some other professional path, and you would be happy. With a few unfortunate exceptions, you would be successful if you obeyed the rules of our society, if you followed the latest medical advice, kept informed by reading the New York Times, got a good education, obeyed the law, made prudent investments, and stayed away from bad things like drugs. Sure, there were problems, but the scientists and the experts were working hard to fix them. Soon a new medical advance, a new law, a new educational technique would propel the onward improvement of life. My childhood perceptions were part of a narrative I call the story of the people, in which humanity was destined to create a perfect world through science, reason, and technology, to conquer nature, transcend our animal origins, and engineer a rational society. From my vantage point, the basic premises of this story seemed unquestionable. My education, the media, and most of all the normality of the routines around me conspired to say, everything is fine. Today, it is increasingly obvious that this was a bubble world built atop massive human suffering and environmental degradation. But at the time, one could live within that bubble without need of much self-deception. The story that surrounded us was robust. It easily kept anonymous data points on the margins. Nonetheless, I, like many others, felt a wrongness in the world, a wrongness that seeped through the cracks of my privileged, insulated childhood. I never fully accepted what I'd been offered as normal. Life, I knew, was supposed to be more joyful than this, more real, more meaningful, and the world was supposed to be more beautiful. We were not supposed to hate Mondays and live for the weekends and holidays. We were not supposed to have to raise our hands to be allowed to pee. We were not supposed to have to be kept indoors on beautiful days, day after day, day after day. And as my horizons broadened, I knew that millions were not supposed to be starving, that nuclear weapons were not supposed to be hanging over our heads, that the rainforests were not supposed to be shrinking, or the fish dying, or the condors and eagles disappearing. I could not accept the way the dominant narrative of my culture handled these things as fragmentary problems to be solved, as unfortunate facts of life to be regretted, or as unmentionable taboo subjects to be simply ignored. On some level, we all know better. This knowledge seldom finds clear articulation. So instead, we express it indirectly through covert and overt rebellion, addiction, self-sabotage, procrastination, laziness, rage, chronic fatigue, and depression are all ways that we withhold our full participation in the program of life we are offered. When the conscious mind cannot find a reason to say no, the unconscious says no in its own way. More and more of us cannot bear to stay in the old normal any longer. Hear, hear. I relate to that. This narrative of normal is crumbling on a systematic level too, a systemic level too. We live today at a moment of transition between worlds. The institutions that have borne us through the centuries have lost their vitality. Only with increasing self-delusion can we pretend they are sustainable. Our systems of money, politics, energy, medicine, education, and more are no longer delivering the benefits they once did or seemed to. Their utopian promise, so inspiring a century ago, recedes further every year. Millions of us know this, more and more. We hardly bother to pretend otherwise. Yet we seem helpless to change, helpless even to stop participating in industrial civilization's rush over the cliff. I have, in my earlier work, offered a reframing of this process, seeing human cultural evolution as a story of growth, followed by crises, followed by breakdown, followed by a renaissance, the emergence of a new kind of civilization, an age of reunion to follow the age of separation. Perhaps profound change happens only through collapse. Certainly that is true for many on a personal level. You may know intellectually that your lifestyle isn't sustainable and you have to change your ways. Yeah, I know. I should stop smoking, start exercising, stop buying on credit, stop doing those things I shouldn't. But how often does anyone change without a wake-up call? Or, more often, a series of wake-up calls? Ding-ling-ling, ding-ling-ling. Next time I shall have my bell. After all, our habits are embedded in a way of being that includes all aspects of life. Hence the saying, you cannot change one thing without changing everything. On the collective level, the same is true. As we awaken to the interconnectedness of all our systems, we see that we cannot change, for example, our energy technologies without changing the economic system that supports them. One connects with the other. We learn as well that all of our external institutions reflect our basic perceptions of the world, our invisible ideologies and belief systems. In that sense, we can say that the ecological crisis, like all of our crises, is a spiritual crisis. And by that, Charles means it goes all the way to the bottom, encompassing all aspects of our humanity. And what exactly is at the bottom, I hear you say? What do I mean by a transition between worlds? At the bottom of our civilization lies a story. Lies a story. Interesting that it says lies a story, spelled L-I-E-S. A mythology. I call it the story of the world or the story of the people. a matrix of narratives, agreements, and symbolic systems that comprises the answers our culture offers to life's most basic questions. Who am I? Why do things happen? What is the purpose of life? What is human nature? What is sacred? Who are we as a people? Where did we come from? And where are we going? Basic questions, but powerful ones. Our culture answers them more or less as follows. So I will present a pure articulation of these answers, this story of the world, though in fact it is never dominated completely, even as it reached its zenith in the last century. You might recognize some of these answers to be scientifically obsolete, but this obsolete 19th and 20th century science still generates our view of what is real, possible, and practical. The new physics, the new biology, the new psychology have only barely begun to infiltrate our operating beliefs. So, here are the old answers to those questions. Who are you? Who are you? If you know, let me know, because I'd like to know myself. You are a separate individual among other separate individuals in a universe that is separate from you as well. You are a Cartesian mote of consciousness looking out through the eyes of a flesh robot, programmed by its genes to maximize reproductive self-interest. You are a bubble of psychology, a mind, whether brain-based or not, separate from other minds and separate from matter. Or you are a soul encased in flesh, separate from the world and separate from other souls. Or you are a mass, a conglomeration of particles operating according to the impersonal forces of physics. Second question. Why do things happen? Again, the impersonal forces of physics act upon a generic material substrate of fundamental particles. All phenomena are a result of these mathematically determined interactions. Intelligence, order, purpose, and design are illusions. Underneath it all is merely a purposeless jumble of forces and masses. Any phenomenon, all of movement, all of life, is the result of the sum total of forces acting upon objects. Question 3. What is the purpose of life? Ooh. In the old story, it says, there is no purpose, only cause. The universe is at the bottom, blind and dead. Thought is but an electrochemical impulse. Love but a hormonal cascade that rewires our brains. The only purpose of life, other than what we manufacture ourselves, is simply to live, to survive and reproduce, to maximize rational self-interest. Since we are fundamentally separate from each other, my self-interest is very likely at the expense of your self-interest. So true. Everything that is not self is at best indifferent to our well-being and at worst hostile. Worth pondering. What is human nature? What is human nature? The old story says, to protect ourselves against this hostile universe of competing individuals and impersonal forces, we must exercise as much control as possible. Look familiar anywhere around our society? We seek out anything that furthers that aim. For example, money, status, security, information, and the good old power. All those things we call worldly. At the very foundation of our nature, our motivations and our desires is what can only be called evil. That is what a ruthless maximizer of self-interest is. So, what therefore is sacred? Since the blind, ruthless pursuit of self-interest is antisocial, it's important to overcome our biological programming, pursue higher things. A holy person, not a holy person, but a holy person, doesn't succumb to the desires of the flesh. He or she takes the path of self-denial, of discipline, ascending into the realm of spirit, or in the secular version of this quest, into the realm of reason and the mind, principles and ethics. For the religious, to be sacred is to be otherworldly. The soul is separate from the body. God lives high above the earth in a castle, just waiting around for you to join him or her or it. Despite their superficial opposition, science and religion have agreed the sacred is not of this world. It's the old story, remember? So, next question. Who are we as people? And we have believed, and the conditioned story says, we are a special kind of animal, the apex of evolution, possessing brains that allow the cultural as well as the generic transfer of information. We are unique in having, in the religious view, a soul, or in the scientific view, a rational mind. In our mechanical universe, we alone possessed consciousness and the wherewithal to mold the world according to our design. The only limit to our ability to do so is that amount of force we can harness and the precision with which we can apply it. The more we are able to do so, the better off we are in this indifferent or hostile universe, the more comfortable and secure. I love my theatrical hand whenever I'm reading. I feel like I'm on stage. It's the actor in me. It's the actor in me, darling. Okay. Last question. Where have we come from and where are we going? Oh, that's a question everybody wants to know. We started out as naked, yes, ignorant animals, okay, barely hanging on to survival, living lives that were nasty, brutish, and short. Fortunately, thanks to our big brains, science replaced superstition and technology replaced ritual. We ascended to become the lords and possessors of nature, domesticating plants and animals, harnessing natural forces, conquering diseases, laying bare the deepest secrets of the universe. Our destiny is to complete that conquest, to free ourselves from labor, from disease, from death itself, to ascend to the stars and leave nature behind altogether. It's great reading it again. Throughout this book, Charles will refer to this worldview that I've just described as the story of separation, the old story, or sometimes outgrowths from it. So other names that represent that throughout the book, which will be the story of ascent, which if you haven't read Charles's other book, The Ascent of Humanity, that's worth downloading as a gift on his website. The program of control, and so forth. So these are the ones that Charles refers to as we continue to read the book. The answers to these questions are culturally dependent. yet they immerse us so completely that we have seen them as reality itself. That's how deep the conditioning is. These answers are changing today, along with everything built atop them, which basically means our entire civilization. That is why we sometimes get the vertiginous, that was a new word for me, but the vertigo feeling that the whole world is falling apart, which I know so many people are feeling right now. Seeing the emptiness of what once seemed so real, practical, and enduring, we stand as if at an abyss. What's next? Who am I? What's important? What is the purpose of my life? How can you be an effective agent of healing? The old answers are fading as the story of the people that once answered them crumbles around us. He goes on to say, this book is a guide from the old story through the empty space between stories and into the birth of the new story. It addresses the reader as a subject of this transition personally and as an agent of transition. For other people, for our society, for our planet. I like this. I even highlighted it, but you could highlight this whole book. Like the crises, the transition we face goes all the way to the bottom. Internally, it is nothing less than a transformation in the experience of being alive. Externally, it is nothing less than a transformation of humanity's role on planet Earth. I do not offer this book as someone who has completed this transition himself. Far from it. I have no more authority to write this book than any man or woman. I am not an avatar or a saint. I am not channeling ascended masters or ETs. I have no unusual psychic powers or intellectual genius. I have no especially deep spiritual practice or shamanic training. Charles is an ordinary man, and you will therefore have to take his words on their own merits. And if my words fulfill their intention, he continues to say, which is to catalyze a next step, big or small, into the more beautiful world our hearts know is possible, my very ordinariness becomes highly significant. It shows how close we all are, all of us ordinary humans, to a profound transformation of consciousness and being. If I, an ordinary man, can see it, we must be almost there. There you go. Chapter 1 of The More Beautiful World Our Hearts Know Is Possible, written by the wonderful Charles Eisenstein. Thank you for listening. That was the first time I've read, or not the first time I've read it, but first time I read it live. It's chapter 1. I'm going to continue to do the chapters. Please enjoy this live reading that I will be doing throughout 2015. Of course, you can read the book as a gift, as everything that Charles does, or majority of what Charles does, comes from the gift economy. It's something that I support deeply and gift it forward, and coming from that place where we give our gifts to the world and we keep that chain of giving alive. So you can read his books on his website, which is on the link underneath this video, online as a gift, as I say again. It doesn't always mean free. It means we're all sharing our gifts. Whatever we can give unconditionally, we give. And that feeds the laws of the universe, where we are abundant. There is so much that we have when we let go of holding on, keeping in separation, and thinking that we're individual beings and we're not here together. 2015 is a year of more and more collaboration, more and more unity flowing through, and us all stepping into what you just heard, or your version of that. There are many people, many ambassadors out there, many messengers out there, as there always has been throughout the whole of history, sharing their message. And you must tune into which message resonates for you. Charles's message has resonated for me in many different ways. Spoken to him a couple of times. You can watch those talks live also at the bottom of this video, and 2 talks that I've captured with him on Simon on the Sofa. And other than that, I'm going to keep these as slick as possible. The next chapter that we will be reading is called Breakdown, and that will be read to you soon. I hope you enjoy it. Please share with friends if you do. Order the book. Check out the website where Charles has many other beautiful books. A free download, gifted download of his audio book, Ascent of Humanity. I also advise you to get those on your smartphones or whatever and listen to that. Wishing you a magnificent 2015, whatever that means to you, as we all push ourselves to the edge of our comfort zones, break out of the invisible prison and dive into something that we have even no idea of what is birthing. But as we say yes to that unknown aspect, as we dive in to that void, what opens is really beyond words. Hence why all of us who are even pointing to that space cannot really name it. You have to feel it. So dive in, and sending you love wherever you are, as we co-create the more beautiful world our hearts, boom, 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 know is possible. This has been Simon on your bed, in your bed, wherever your bed might be, come day, night, or rain, reading you powerful stories, real stories, no films, no drama,